Hi. I'm going to come to you on this installment not from a cartooning perspective, but more from a critic's perspective. That's mostly what I do. I mean, I do have some art projects, but right now my project focus has always been the media critic stuff at bwspotlight.com. And, I review all sorts of things, everything storytelling related that I can. And there are a lot of critics out there who review web comics and self-published stuff and everything. Usually when we do it, I think we do it to promote really cool stuff. But you're always going to find somebody out there who treats it like it's just a regular comic, which, I mean, it is, but it isn't. I mean, nobody's really paying you, a couple $100 to do a webcomic, unless you're doing really well on Patreon or ad revenue or people buying your book. Like Ethan Comics and Marvel, I don't know how much a comic creator makes at a big time publisher, but I try to give them a little more flack because they're charging me $3.99, and it's may not necessarily be their life's work. It might be, but the thing is, they're being put in charge of Superman or Spider-Man or something else. They're being passed a story stick, and I'm going to judge them accordingly. I will judge somebody's independent work accordingly. It's like I will still point out things that I thought they did wrong and did right. But I've reviewed quite a few independent works, and I have an internet spotlight where I look at some of your webcomics. But when I do that, I don't really go to a webcomic and do a report on a webcomic that I think is terrible, because this is not usually something you're being hired to do. This is a labor of love, and just like when I do Jake and Leon, it's also kind of art practice. Or when I do Captain Yuletide, which is just a fun thing I like to do at Christmas. It's not meant to be some big thing, it's just something I do for fun. But I know that there are critics out there who will review a comic, and if it's a comic they don't like, they'll try to warn people away from seeing it. Especially if it's something that you see the ads on Project Wonderful and you get curious, so you click on it, and there you go. And I'm not against doing that. I mean, you want to warn people away from comics you don't think are good. But here's kind of a thing. If you're trying to figure out how to make a critic happy, I can tell you right now, lots of money. Or, not borrowing that, make sure your comic gets every single thing a critic wants. But which critic do you choose? The thing about us is we're not have some special perspective. Our word is not law. I mean, I've listened to a bunch of critics. Some I've agreed with, some I've disagreed with. But I usually see what they're discussing and decide for myself whether or not it's something I want to look into. But when we do these things, when we do reviews and things, they are our opinion. But at the same time, a good critic will try to be fair and honest. They'll say, this is not my kind of thing, but it's well made, or this would be my kind of thing, but it's not very well made. That kind of thing. I'm going to tell you, if somebody wants you to review their thing, I will tell you what I think of it. Things that I didn't like and things that I did like. And I've actually had on a couple of occasions, somebody wanted me to review their work. Or somebody said, so, and I did. It's a rarity, but it's people who try to get out there and I guess they're hoping that you'll have a favorable opinion, fair about it. Because there are things that I don't personally like, but I will say, this is pretty competently made. And occasionally I'll find things that I didn't think I'd be interested in, but I get drawn into. Here's a webcomic called Paradigm Shift. It's a buddy cop story involving werewolves. Not usually my kind of thing, separately or together. But when I do Kineticon, I interview people at tables, and I interviewed the person who did this, and I went to the website to get sample art to put in the screen. So when he's talking about it, the image will kind of flow there, just to give you an idea of what the comic looks like, and also to just be good visually. So it's not just this one person talking to you all the time, and it gets kind of boring. So I put up a picture of their work, and there you go. And as I started reading this comic, I started really getting into it. It was just really that well made. And there are other comics, and I haven't really gone back to it. I mean, considering going back to it. There are other comics that have done the same thing to me, but because it's really well done and I get caught into the story, but it's not something that I would return to. But I would still tell you it's a good comic if you asked me. Because, pleasing me is not going to make your comic good. Pleasing your fans isn't necessarily going to make the comic good, because sometimes fans will get upset if maybe their favorite characters that they've been shipping aren't the ones that you wanted to put together. And frankly, a lot of shipping seems to be people who are just too close friends to each other, or argue with her so much they're just expecting a Sam and Diane style relationship. Excuse me. Hang on. Okay, got it. So when you can't please everybody, it's kind of impossible. Don't try to please everybody. You've got your story. You've got the world that you want to create. Maybe your laws of physics don't match the world you. Maybe your characters are less judgmental of superheroes in the real world think would actually happen. It's like, if somebody had Superman's power, people would not react like that. If somebody had Superman's powers, they'd be dead. Nobody could live with Superman's powers. Forget Man of Steel, Woman of Kleenex. There's other aspects of his powers that won't work. Crack.com has done a couple of interesting articles about how if your comic's really realistic, Thor would be blinding and deafening himself every time he uses powers. So you can't worry too much. If you want to do something realistic, which sometimes for me, realistic things come off more as critic of cynical, but if you want to do something more real world based, totally do it. And you're going to find an audience for it. If you're like me, you want to do something that kind of harkens back to the Bronze Age or Saturday morning or weekday afternoon cartoons, do that. My concern with criticism is you cannot complain about what the world is about unless it's something that you find personally offensive. Then yeah, you're gonna say something. If you do some kind of anti-Christian rant in your comics, I'm not going to exactly look favorably upon you. But I am more concerned when I critique something on the execution. How well the character's written, how well is the world created. It doesn't have to be, really good art. I mean, I'm no real good artist. Just look at my stuff. I'm not horrible. If I was horrible, you wouldn't be seeing any of it. And believe me, I've got plenty of horrible in my past. But I'm not that great an artist, and I'm not going to critique somebody for not being a great artist if their stuff is competent. I mean, I've got my own issues. I'll talk about that in a different art sound-off probably next week, because this will be my last one till Monday. Well, maybe I'll talk about it Monday. I don't know. Maybe something else will come up. I was going to do this yesterday. But if you want to create a world with, fancy unicorns, or people where world where humans and anthros exist in the same world, and you have a man and a wolf girl dating or something, that's your world. Be willing to create whatever world you want. Where I'm talking about with execution is stay true to your world. If somebody can fall 50 feet and not splatter onto the pavement, then everybody who falls 50 feet does not splatter onto the pavement. You cannot with that. If somebody survives one way and somebody does it the same way, should also survive. It's unless there's other circumstances involved. It's kind of like the hero used a jetpack, or maybe the villain has some kind of something or other that maybe he falls on a bomb when he hits the ground or something. But you have to keep your world consistent. And people don't have to be consistent. Your characters have to be consistent. Like, if this guy acts a certain way, he needs to keep acting a certain way unless there's a reason he changes his way. I don't have enough visual. Oh, I could have just gone up here. Yeah. This guy's character would be consistent. But, this character does not have to act the same way as this character. They can have different views and opinions. My computer shelf. I'm not going to lie. If I'm lying, I'm not going to apologize. I'm a bit of a weird boy. But, you don't have to. You can have some consistency, like, you want to mess with the laws of physics. It's the same for everybody, just like it is here. If it's like, well, how come he survived and he didn't? Well, then that's something you need to either address or, if you draw an outfit, draw something that create an outfit for somebody. Make sure it's something that you can draw consistently, so that if the pocket's moving, or if there's a piece of article that's missing from one to another, that's something to worry. That's what the criticisms that you need to worry about is your execution, not necessarily the world you want to create. If you want to create a world where it's superhero clowns, go ahead. Personally, I think clowns are getting a bad reputation lately, and it would be nice to see a superhero clown. If you want to, whatever you want to create, don't let somebody tell you that you can't create the world you want, or that people need to have what they believe would be the real world attitude. It's not the real world. It's fiction. You can do whatever the heck you want with it. As long it doesn't have to make any sense at all, as long as it makes sense to its own world. And I'm going to sneeze. So. Every time I do watch Soundoff, I seem to get a cold. I'm coming down with one now. So I don't know how that's going to affect things. When I try to work, because I missed enough work as it is this year. But it's kind of, I lost my train of thought again. Help me, Super Clown. I need help. You can create every world you want. You can have people's attitudes you want. If you have people who are like happy Godzilla's smashing their city, it sounds stupid, but if you can make it work, go for it. Maybe there's a reason for it, I don't know what that would be offhand, but if you have a good reason for it, then go ahead. Because think about it. I mean, how many sci-fi programs you see that have faster than light travel, and yet, according to scientists, faster than light travel is scientifically impossible, and we wouldn't survive the experience. So, but we still put it in there. Teleportation is still used in science fiction, even though people kind of debate whether or not you're simply cloning a new body and sticking your mind in there. And what do you do if you're a more spiritually minded person? So I mean, it's just, you can't necessarily replicate the real world unless you're doing kind of a real life story, you know, story about a guy who's just trying to get by and doesn't have any superpowers, and then he's just a guy trying to get by. If you want to do a real world story, do a real world story. If you want to do something that's slightly off the real world, go ahead. You want to do something that has no basis in reality, go ahead. Never listen to a critic that tells you that your world is wrong or that your characters are wrong. Listen to what they say about your execution. Could you improve your drawing in some area? Maybe this is the art style you want to go with, but that's okay. But if they complain about drawing consistency or the lack of backgrounds or something, take that into consideration. Don't necessarily dismiss a critic, even if he's being a jerk. If he's just saying, "Oh, I think this sucks," no, it doesn't matter. If he can tell you why he thinks it's not good, and if you look at it and say, "Well, what you're telling me to do is pretty much ignore my world or my art style," that's fine. But when it comes to the execution, don't clearly dismiss it because they don't like your work. Maybe if they actually explain why they don't like it, and there's some things in there that make sense to you that maybe I should fix this, then that's only going to improve your work. But if they give you advice that's going to throw you away from what you're trying to do, then all they're going to do is destroy what it is you're trying to do and destroy your work. And they're going to try to take over what characters get together or how people are going to react. You have your own idea of how you want to create your world. You want to create a happier world. You want to create a darker world. It's your world. We're just looking at it. And don't dismiss a critic off him, but don't necessarily assume that you're there to please the critics or to please the fans. You're there to please yourself. This is your story that's in your head that's dying to get out. And you got to tell it your way. You can always get better, and a little advice, a little help is always good. But in the end, it is your world. They are your characters. Your planet operates. And don't feel like you got to change it just because somebody doesn't like it. You'll have nobody reading it. There's the world. Maybe you'll find a whole bunch of people who you're surprised agree with you and want to see your world and wish they lived in your world instead of ours, or see it as a good commentary on what's wrong with our world, or maybe a good commentary on what's right with our world. Why not one of those for a change? That'd be nice. But don't be afraid to make your world. We don't control your world. We will try to help you improve in some way, but changing it to what I like is not improvement. Because it's not about what I like. It's about what you like. You made it. It's your mind. You're connecting to this alternate universe, and you have to tell your story correctly. But that doesn't mean we can't all get better with our writing and our characters and our art. I mean, I've got a few art issues that I've got to work out. But I'm falling to a ramble, and I don't know if that's because I'm losing words or because of my cold. That's hopefully going to be able to shake off soon. So I'll just drop there. If you want me to evaluate, further describe, further explain myself, whatever the word that's supposed to mean, then let me know. I'll write it, or I'll do a follow-up art Soundoff, or do an article or something. But I hope it helps you give you some buffer against negative criticism, and also gives you a chance to look at positive criticism, even if the critic is negative. or look at something negative and something positive for Dick. I don't know. And if you want to see me be a little more coherent, hopefully, because this cold, you can check out my website, bwspotlight.com. If you want to see what other people are saying on the art of comic creation, check out the Twitter hashtag #ArtSoundoff and check out everybody taking part in the Art Soundoff Challenge. And if you want to decide you want to join in and give your own thoughts about your art day or things that are on your mind as you build your worlds, go to leannoart.com/artsoundoff, and that will give you some prompts to go by, give you how we're supposed to do this thing, and some ideas on where to host and all that cool stuff. So you can ramble like an idiot for 15 minutes. Won't that be fun? But until then, I will see you again on Monday for Art Soundoff. More stuff coming up on my website. Until then, where's my cursor? There you are. I wish you happy creating.